I'm Stella reporting from Voice K. Today we are at the International Festival of Authors and I'm about to interview the winner of the Silver Birch Nonfiction nomination. And can you please spell your name to the camera?
Absolutely, yeah. It's Joel A. Sutherland. Yeah.
Can you spell it?
Oh, absolutely. I can do that too. Joel. Middle initial A, and last name is Sutherland.
Thank you. So what book did you write that won?
Yeah, so I wrote Haunted Canada 5, Terrifying True Stories.
What is your book about?
Well, it's a collection of all true Canadian ghost stories. So I've got stories in this book from every province and territory, right from BC to Newfoundland and all the way up to Northwest Territories and Nunavut as well, and even the Yukon.
Cool. Yeah. Where'd you find all these stories?
I do a lot of research. I have to do a lot of research for it. So luckily I'm a librarian, so it kind of fits with my day job. I look for a lot of really old books and magazine articles and newspaper articles to find stories. And now I'm fortunate enough that a lot of people know the series and are starting to contact me to share their own personal stories. So now I'm starting to get more first-hand accounts of people that live in haunted houses.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
How long did it take for you to do all that research?
That's a good question. Well, my schedule for one of these books is usually I start with about 4 months of research where I'm just doing research. Now, I'm always on the lookout for new stories, and I have a big folder where I jot things down or put like computer printouts in and keep all the ideas together. But when I do the actual research, it's about 4 months of like really heavy research on each of the stories I've picked for the next volume of the books. And then it takes me usually about 4 months to write the book and at least another 4 months to edit it.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, but it's about a year from start to finish of like research, writing, and editing.
Why do you think your book won?
I think that kids are just really interested in spooky things, you know. I think it's, I was the same when I was that age. At a really young age, I started reading Stephen King novels, and nobody ever said I couldn't read Stephen King novels, but I kind of had a feeling that I probably shouldn't, that they were meant for somebody older than I was. I kind of thought if I got caught reading one, I'd maybe get in trouble, and there was something about that that really excited me, so I actually started reading more and more and more. And I think kids today are the same. They like to be scared, they like that thrill, and what they might not realize is when they are being scared and reading these creepy stories, they're actually learning a lot about Canadian geography and history, because all the stories have a little bit about the true places that have sort of spawned these haunted locations.
Yeah, interesting. When did you start taking interest in writing?
You know, I always loved writing from a really young age. I still remember when I was like 6 or 7, writing my own short stories, drawing the pictures that went with them. They usually involved animals and sports, 2 things I loved at that age. But I never thought, at least not at that time, that I would grow up to be an author. It just never was something that I was thinking would happen. It was just something I enjoyed doing in my free time. And it wasn't until I actually graduated from university that I decided, now I'd been writing all along through high school, short stories, university short stories, but again, just for me, just to have fun. And after university I decided, you know what, maybe I should take the plunge and send some of these stories to magazines and websites and see if they'd like to publish it. And after a lot of rejections, many rejections, I finally got my first acceptance, and that sort of lit the fire under me, and I loved it. I loved seeing something I wrote in print, being read by people, and then I was off, and I just started writing more and more and more.
And that just answers my next question.
Oh, perfect. Psychic abilities.
Are you a full-time writer?
No, I'm not. So I work in a library full-time, and as a children's and youth services librarian, so it kind of goes hand in hand, too, with writing kids' books. I get to see kids each and every day, find out what they're interested in, what they're reading, what's popular, and try and use that information with my own writing to make sure what I'm writing will be of interest to them as well. So it goes pretty well with being a librarian and an author. They go hand in hand.
So you say you write kids' books?
That's right, yeah. So the Haunted Canada series is really aimed at ages 9 to 12. But I've had definitely a lot of kids older tell me they still love reading it, even through high school. And a lot of adults actually read them too. Because I don't necessarily write them thinking, I'm going to write this for a 9-year-old. I just write the story the way I feel it should be told. So the only difference really, I guess, between this and a ghost book for adults is usually in the adult book, the stories are longer. So in here, each story is about 1,000 words or about 4 or 5 pages. So they're really short, they get to the point, and a lot of adults actually have told me they really like that because it kind of cuts out all the superfluous details and gets to the really scary stuff quickly. So a lot of adults even like them too.
I hear you write fiction as well.
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I've actually got some new books coming out with Scholastic, my publisher, next year. So in 2017, I have a young adult novel coming out. That'll be my first young adult novel. And then in the summer of 2017, I have the first 2 books in a new series coming out. That's going to be really a lot like Goosebumps. So for middle grade, which is like 9 to 12-year-olds like these books, short novels, but each one will be about a different kid dealing with sort of, ghost and paranormal activity somewhere in Canada. So if you like Goosebumps, like I always like Goosebumps, you'll really like this series. My intent was to give Canadian readers and Canadian kids a series that they could really relate to, because, hopefully they'll read one of the books that's sort of set near where they live, like a story in Toronto. Everyone in Toronto would be really interested, I think, in reading that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Which one do you prefer over nonfiction or fiction?
It's a tough question. If you asked me that before I started writing the series, I definitely would have said fiction, because at the time I was writing a lot of short stories or short fiction. And I definitely wanted to start writing novels. But when I started writing this series, I got really into the nonfiction aspect of it. I really enjoyed the research and trying to do the stories, a good service, make sure I was telling them well, because they are real people, they all involve real people. And so I wanted to make sure that I sort of told the stories well, So I've really enjoyed it. I also love the fact that I get to find out all these really cool facts about Canada, both just normal history and the ghost sort of facts as well. I think it's fascinating.
So nonfiction's your preference?
Yeah, I'll say definitely right now. It changes. It goes back and forth. Right now, I'll go absolutely with nonfiction, 100%.
Great.
Yeah.
Is this your first time entering as a nominee for the awards?
It is, yeah. It's my first time being nominated for the Force of Reading, which is pretty, an incredible honor. Not just because of what it means and how many kids read the book, but it was pretty surprising too, since it is the 5th book in the series and the first one to be nominated. So I, had never thought that any of the books would be nominated. I just knew that kids really liked them, and I really liked writing them, and that really was the most important thing, that a lot of kids were reading them. So this is just such a thrill, such an honor. It's kind of like icing on the cake, really. Yeah.
Have you gotten any other awards on writing before?
Actually, I just got my first award a few weeks ago. Number 4, the previous book, was nominated for the Hackmatack Award, which is the Forest of Reading style of award for the Atlantic provinces. So, PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland. And so it's the same idea, where 10 books are picked in different categories, and then the kids read them, vote on their favorite, and that's who wins. And Haunted Canada 4 just won last April. I was out in New Brunswick, in Moncton, and I did a tour through the province and then had the ceremony at the end of the week. And like I said, I was amazed that number 4 won the award.
So people must really like the
Yeah, it's really nice. It's a good recognition, and it's just great to know that so many kids are reading them and enjoying them.
Did you read any other books in the nomination?
Yeah. As a librarian, I had all the books in my library. Loved Baseballogy, by Kevin Sylvester. Thought that was great. I'm a big Jays fan. I know he's not, but He's from America originally, so he's not a Jays fan, but I love him, and I thought that was a great book. Thought Boredom Busters was really cool. I could see my kids really enjoying that book when they're a bit older. When the Worst Happens was cool. I love, sort of thrilling books like that. So there was a lot of great books. I mean, I could go on. They were all fantastic.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Excellent.